Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this image. Now this image is, as you probably gathered, a macro image and it's a variation on the theme of coloured water drops. There's all sorts of different ways to create this sort of thing and this is just one way of doing it. So on this table I have what will be my subject, which is a piece of slate. And I've just propped that up on a couple of pieces of wood. Then I have my camera. This has a macro lens on it. This is the dedicated Canon MPE 65mm 1 to 5 times macro lens, but you can use absolutely anything, or just a normal lens with extension tubes. I will only be using this at about 1 times, maybe 1.5, something like that. The camera itself, as usual, is tethered into Capture One software. Okay, so to get back to the subject, we just need to do some preparation on the slate before we begin. And what I'm going to do is, just using a small amount of oil, I'm just going to lightly oil the surface of this slate. So, go. Then when you actually spray this with water, they'll form individual tiny little drops, which is what we want. So just using a recycled spray bottle, just with water in it, I'll just carefully spray the surface, just a tiny amount, with water. Don't want to put too much on to start with. Okay, now I'm just going to have a little look through the viewfinder. Yeah, and that looks about fine. So, the next stage then would be to think about how it's going to be lit. So what I want to do in terms of lighting is to create something which will give me a highlight in each water droplet, but also give an overall illumination at the same time. Now an easy way to do that is just to add some form of scrim or diffusion material above the subject, about here somewhere. So here I have a quarter stop silk. It's actually made out of nylon, but that's just what they're called. And on this 4 foot by 4 foot frame, just on this stand here. And that will just diffuse the light, which I'm going to add from around here somewhere, just to give me the sort of effect that I want. So obviously, next thing to do, get the light in. So I'm thinking something like that at the moment. Now this is a Profoto D2 studio flash with modelling light and so on, and I've got a normal reflector on here which is set to the wide angle end. So before we get started assessing the lighting, as usual I'll just take a test just to see if we're getting any undue contamination from the house lights. There you go, you can see from that there's no contamination to speak of, and that's with the lens wide open at 2.8. So with that exercise completed, I'll just put the flash trigger on the top of the camera, turn that on, and we'll just test the flash. There we go. And you can see from that at 2.8, this flash is set to an arbitrary energy level of 5, so it's halfway along its scale. It's possibly a little bright, but it's giving me the sort of thing that I wanted. I don't really want just a line like this though. I'd like a little more depth in the image, so I'm going to increase the aperture from 2.8 to an initial f8. Now that's 3 stops, so I'm actually going to increase the energy by 2 stops because I think it was a bit bright anyway. Okay, we'll just take another one. There we are, that's better. Yes, that's darkened it down a bit, and also we've got a fairly nice rendition of the highlight in each of the water droplets here. I also like the background bokeh effect. Okay, so that's more or less the initial setup done. The next stage would be to add a little colour. Now there's lots of different ways to do that. You could use photographic gels. This is a set from Lee Filters. There's lots of different colours in here. This is their saturated colour set. So we can just get these gels and just lay them out more or less at random on the top of the scrim here. And then as the flash fires through them, it will give a coloured effect. So with those in place, let's just have another test. Yeah, so there we can see that we probably need a little more light. The gels are taking quite a lot of light away, and it seems to be predominantly blue. We've got some quite large areas of blue here, so if I just remove those two, in fact I might leave one in, but I'll move it slightly. Move the others around a bit. Maybe add another one like this, and give that another go. There we are, and so on. But you can see from the image that you end up with a predominant colour, even though you're using lots of separate bits of gel. But there is another way that you can do this. If I just take all these off again, what you can use instead is sweet wrappers. Now, what I've done here is, over the course of many years, I've collected quite a lot of sweet wrappers, and what I'm going to do is just put them on the top of this scrim at random, like this. And spread them out a bit. There we go. Now, having spread all those out a bit, we'll take that image again and just see what difference that makes. There we go. Now we're getting a bit more of a multicoloured effect. If I just zoom into this image, we just pan around a little, there. So each of the drops of water is now reflecting multiple colours, which is the way that I wanted to make the image. We also have some reasonably nice bokeh going on in the background again. So there we go. That's about it for actually capturing the images. So don't forget, whenever you get the opportunity to have some sweets with these sort of wrappers, do keep them. You never know when they're going to come in handy. Okay, so I'll pick the best of those and go into Photoshop and just do the final bit of post-processing. So I've selected this image to go forwards into Photoshop, and basically it's quite a nice illustration of detail that we've got going on in here, which I'm quite pleased with. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just make a duplicate of the layer, like that. So I can work on this duplicate, and it's just good practice to do that, I think. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to saturate the colour a bit more than it is already. There's lots of different ways to do that. You could use an adjustment layer. I'm just going to use the image adjustments hue and saturation here. And I'm just going to increase the saturation just to bring out the various bits of colour, which I think is quite a nice thing. If I just turn the preview on and off, you'll be able to see the difference that's making, which is quite good. There we go, something like that. Click on OK. And then I think I will just do a brightness and contrast layer. I'm just going to increase the brightness a little and just take the contrast down a bit, something like that. Again, just to bring out the detail. And I've done this on a layer so that I can use the mask in there just to take that off the bits that I don't want to affect. So I'm just, with a very large brush, going to take it off the very background. Just like that. Just to add a bit more three-dimensionality to it. And I might just take it off the corners as well. There we go. So that's just brought out this area, which is quite nice. And really, that's about it. I think the next stage, I would just look for a crop. I'll go for the usual ratio, 16 by 9, which fits the video quite well. I might just move that ever so slightly up in the frame, but apart from that, I think that's it. So I'll just click on OK. And there we have it. That's my take on water drop photography. There are many different variations that you can use to do this sort of thing. This is just one of them, but it's a bit of fun. If you like seeing this sort of thing, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.